Oof. It ended with a military coup in Africa where my team and I got stuck. So that was
What
sort
part
of
of
a
Africa?
good kickoff to all of it. It was in Niger, so it's in the Sahel region of Africa. The U.S. has actually a military presence. Remember a few years ago when there were these 4 U.S. Marines that were killed in the Sahel in Niger and nobody even knew they were there? Well, there's actually over 1,000 troops stationed in Niger. And we were there in a little town called Agadez, which is in sort of the southern border of the Sahara Desert. And we were doing a story about gold mining. So the story itself was incredible. We had to, we had military convoy with us because it's an incredibly dangerous part of the world. You've got terrorism, you've got ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, you've got kidnappers. So it's very, very dangerous. So we'd gone there with the permission of the government, but only if we had to have a military convoy with us at all times. So we're talking about 4 armored trucks with lots of trained soldiers that every time we stopped, they'd get out of the trucks and basically point their guns all around. They were very well trained. Wow. A lot of them are actually trained by the American military. And we went out into the desert and visited these gold mines, which are crazy. It was an 8-hour off-roading into the desert to arrive at these illegal, unregulated mines. We're going down these tunnels, and it's, 100 meters down, hand dug tunnels with nothing to buttress them, no safety precautions or anything, but we filmed it all, and we get to the end, and there's people basically mining for gold. And again, constantly with the idea that the military is telling us, okay, we have to film fast, we have to do this fast, we can't be out at night. So we went to a sort of more safe location to sleep that night under the stars. And then the next day, it's time to come back to Agadez, the town, which is about 100 miles, but takes anywhere between like 3 to 12 hours to get because lots of things can happen along the way. And we arrived in Agadez, and we got word that there had been a military coup, and the president had been deposed, and he was now being kidnapped inside the presidential palace. Basically, he was stuck there with his family. And that we were about to lose our military compound and security. And they closed all the land borders and the airspace, and we were stuck with no way out because you can't travel by road without security in that part of the world, and there were no planes leaving, so we were stuck.
Wow. How long were you stuck for?
It was about 9 days. The military coup happened on a Wednesday, and we left on a Thursday, so 8 days. But it was 8 incredibly scary days. I've been a journalist covering black markets and going to war zones and conflict areas all my life. But this was, I think, the most uncomfortable and scared I've ever been because, first of all, the uncertainty of not knowing. There were the West African states were threatening invasion. The Wagner group, the Russian mercenary group, were saying that they were going to come and protect the new military coup leaders. And so it was a power struggle between the United States and Russia. And that's sort of the last place you want to be, right? And again, no protection. I'm there with my team. I'm sort of the boss in that situation because I'm the owner of the company that produces this. I'm the host of the show. I'm the executive producer. And I felt very responsible for my team as well. And the clock is ticking, and they're telling us that in a few days we're going to invade, and there's going to be a massive possibility of a massive war. And we're stuck with, again, no protection and no way out. So it was really, really scary.
How did it get resolved?
That's the interesting part. So the funny thing is that there was an American military base, actually, one of the biggest Air Force bases ever built. Costs over $100 million to build, just 2 miles from our little hotel in Agadez. We were the only foreigners there, apart from aid workers that sort of live behind barbed wire and in compounds. But we were the only foreigners staying in a hotel. This hotel, interestingly enough, was actually built when Gaddafi came to visit in the 90s or late 80s. And it was a rundown hotel. We were there, again, no protection, nothing. And the military base is just 2 miles from us. And we'd tried to get inside the base to film, and we'd been denied access to the base. But when the coup happened, we managed to get a contact inside and started asking them, we're here with no security. Can you guys come and help us and figure out, take us into the base, something. We're all American citizens, except for our local guy who was actually from Mali, but everybody else was American. And they were stuck in the situation that all the other countries had started calling this a coup, but the U.S. government did not. And because the moment they called it a coup, they would have to remove the military, possibly remove military, remove their aid from the country. And that's the last thing you want to do. So they couldn't they didn't want to evacuate us. They didn't want to call it a coup. They didn't want to get us out of there. Their hands were sort of tied. That's how they told us. And we started seeing slowly as the days started passing and the situation was deteriorating. We started seeing, the French were sending planes to take out all the French nationals, the British, the Portuguese, which is where I'm a double nationality where I'm from. And I'm on the phone with the ambassador for Portugal telling me there's a plane for you. There's like seats for you in the capital, but the capital is 8 hours away or 12 hours away by land, and we can't go because it's too dangerous and no airplanes would take us there. And eventually, we realized that the only way that we'd be able to get out is if we took matters into our own hands. So actually, my team in LA found an evacuation company willing to fly a plane in the middle of the night to get us out.
That sounds like a Chuck Norris movie.
Oh, it was
Evacuation company?
Oh, it was actually Argo. Have you watched the movie Argo with Ben Affleck about the guys in Iran?
No, I did watch that, yeah.
And how they don't know until the last minute if they're going to leave or not. It was exactly that situation. So we get to the airport in the middle of the night. So they told us that we had to be at the airport at this time, that we had to take security with us because the pilot was refusing to land unless we had security there, police. The police was supposed to show up. They never did. We arrive at the airport. It's sunrise, and the military is there waiting for us. Yeah, it's one of those. And they start creating all sorts of problems, saying we don't have the right paperwork. They're not going to let us leave. Meanwhile, there's this amazing local man who worked at the airport that I'd met a few days before when I went there to try to see if there's any plane leaving, let us know. And so I stayed in touch with him. And I had told him that it was my son's birthday, which was partially not true. It wasn't his birthday, but he was about to leave camp. And I've got this tradition as a working mother who travels all the time. We have this tradition that I always pick him up from camp, and it's performing arts camp. And so I told him, sorry, this is a very long story.
No, it's good.
So I told him, so he was there to help us, but the military was also there, and they didn't want us to leave, and creating all sorts of problems. And then we see the plane land, and we see the pilot come out, and we see the military start walking towards the pilot to tell them that we didn't have the permission to leave. And my fear was that the pilot was immediately going to turn around because he had told us that we had 20 minutes. He was going to spend 20 minutes on the ground, and if we couldn't get into the plane, he was going to leave without us.